David Bailey, working with Bailey was brilliant. He was 9 years older than me, and he treated me like a son. Actually, we worked together for 4 or 5 years, went all around the world, he, when I decided to leave, we did all the collections in Rome and Paris and New York 3 or 4 times in that period. When I said to him, look, I was with him for 4 years. I said, I've got to set up on my own now. I've got to make. He said, no, you don't want to do that. No, you don't want to do it, because an assistant is like your wife. You know, you spend more time with your assistant than you do with your wife. And he didn't want to have to train somebody else. And I said, look, I'll stay for a couple of months, train somebody up. I said, it'll be fine. He said, well, you can't go yet because we've got the Italian collections to do in Rome. So I said, okay, we'll do that and stuff. And then when that was over, I said, right, I better make. He said, no, we can't. We've got that trip to Zambia in Africa. He said, it's 3 weeks. I can't do that with the new assistant. And he kept this going for a year. Every time I said, I'm right, I'm going, there was something else that I couldn't, he wouldn't let me go. So after a year, I said, no, that's it. I've got to go now. I've really got to go. And so he was a bit sad, and he said, look, he said, if you stay with me, he said, I'll buy you a flat and I'll pay you £100 a week. And I was on £25 a week. So it's a big increase, because we're talking 50 years ago. And I said, and he said, I'll buy you a flat. So you want to worry about a flat and all this, where to live. And I was with my girlfriend. I went home that night. I said, let me think about it overnight. And I went home and she said, oh, great, my God, we'll get a flat, because we were in a bed sit, you know. I said, I'm not sure about that. And she said, what do you mean you're not sure? God, we'll get a flat, it would be fantastic. I said, I know, I don't think I'm going to take it. And she went mad, she wasn't happy. So the next day I said to Bailey, I'm sorry, I can't do it. I said, it's a great offer, thanks a lot. But he also said I had to sign a contract for 5 years to stay with him for another 5 years as well. So that's the thing that put me off, really, because I thought by that time I'd be nearly 30. And I said, no, but I've got to go now. I used to call him Bail, you know, no bail, I've got to go. And he said, okay. So I got another assistant in for 2 months, trained him up. And we went on a couple of trips with him, so he got to know the thing. And he was good, he was great. Bailey was happy with him in the end. And when I left, Bailey's like Marmite, you like him or you don't. I mean, people just like him or they don't. He kind of says things as it is, you know, he doesn't pull any punches. And when I left, he said, okay, you're going to need some cameras. So he gave me a box of Nikon cameras and a box of Pentax 6.7s. And he said, I'm going to pay you for another year till you set yourself up. So you won't have to worry about money. So he was, you know, bloody good to me, really. And he even let me use his studio when he was at Vogue. He had a studio in his house. I could do portraits there, a bit of fashion if I wanted to. So I didn't have to worry about that. I mean, I paid him back. He paid me for that year, but I paid him back bit by bit over the next couple of years. But yeah, he was really good to me. In his house, he did most of the portraits, because it was a double room like this. And Bailey had a studio set up in that room and the camera here, and used to shoot through. Most of the people came there to Goodbye Baby and Amen was a book he did of everybody that was anybody, you know, and it was the end of the 60s, and it was goodbye towards the 60s and the new period. So he got everybody, and I mean, everybody was in the book. Everybody, Mick Jagger and the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and you know, everybody, Michael Caine, every big David Hockney, every big person around at that time. And there was one funny story. He was photographing Yoko and John Lennon, and he photographed John and then Yoko, and then he said, I'm going to just do a couple of pictures of Yoko. He said, said to John, take a seat, John, back there, and I'll be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. So he was sitting on the couch, and I was sitting on the couch with him at the back of the studio while Bailey was photographing her, talking to her, and he started rolling this joint up. I mean, it was a big fat joint, and he said to me, do you smoke, John? And I said, yeah, you know, I never even smoked a cigarette, let alone a joint. But I didn't want to, you know, John Lennon, a joint with John Lennon, you know. I said, yeah, sure I do, yeah, sure. So took a couple of puffs, and the smell was like marijuana, you know. And he passed this joint to me, and I took a small puff, I thought, and I was coughing and spluttering, you know, like a big girl's blouse, and he was patting me on the back like this. He said, give me that joint, you don't waste that joint, give it back to me. He said, you don't smoke, do you? I said, I do, it just went down the wrong way. He said, give it. So that was although I'd met him a couple of times before. But it was funny, in the pub that night, I was with some mates and we were talking about what happened today. And I said, well, actually, I was being a bit flash, you know. I said, actually, I had a joint with John Lennon today. And they all looked at me and said, what? I said, yeah, I shared a joint with John Lennon. And they said, yeah, sure, you did, Pinocchio. And they all turned their back on me and carried on talking as if I wasn't there. They just thought I was lying. And that happened quite a lot, you know. When I photographed Princess Diana, she came in the studio and she was early, and I was sitting on the desk in the studio, cross-legged, talking to a friend of mine. And suddenly this tap on the shoulder, and I turn around and there's face-to-face Diana. And this is when she was massive, just left Charlie the King. I jumped up and the phone bounced off the table onto the floor, and I jumped. I said, I'm sorry, I'm a bit early. I'm sorry to interrupt your call. She was really polite. And I said, no, it's fine. I would have met you at the door. I'm sorry. He said, no, you carry on. She said, I'm going to go in the dressing room and get my makeup done, and, you know, I'll come out. And the boys are doing her and the boys. They're coming in about half an hour, So I said, okay, fine, great. So I picked up the phone, and my friend at the other end said, what was all that about? You know, I said, it's just Princess Diana just came in, tapped me on the shoulder, gave me a bit of a shock. And he said, yeah, sure she did. Again, one of those stories. I kind of gave up afterwards, you know, talking about people that Bailey came through Bailey's, because everybody came through. And sometimes we'd go to dinner with them. You know, we'd go to Mick Jagger, would all go off to dinner somewhere, or David Hockney would go and have lunch with him. And it was, for me, it was just magical, you know. I mean, absolutely magical. Can you imagine? You know, kid from the Bronx, you know, just never seen anything like it. Never had food like it, never drank wine before, all that kind of stuff. I was only 18 or 19. So yeah, they were brilliant days.